Life is hard, and everyone has to deal with some sort of adversity in this life that we are given. But the only way that we can overcome the adversity and hardships that life presents us is by having the mentality even to be able to overcome it. The battle itself can be something physical, it can be something spiritual, an emotional struggle, or most likely a combination of all three. But the way that we overcome hard times and continue to grind, even when the world is weighing us down, is by having the mentality and the mindset to overcome the challenges. This is exactly why I reached out to my guest today and wanted to have him on the Rise Elite podcast. My guest today is Matt Branch. Matt is a former LSU Tiger football player, a husband, a father, an avid hunter, and a great man of faith. Just over a year and a half ago, Matt faced a tragic hunting accident that nearly cost him his life and has dramatically changed his life today. I don't want to give too many details away because I want you guys to be able to hear his story from his mouth. But Matt is no stranger to adversity, and he is turning his experience into a platform in order to advocate for disabled outdoorsmen, hunting and gun safety, and prioritizing what really matters in life. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy today's episode with him. But before we get to that, I just want to ask you guys to reach out to me on social media. On Instagram, which is where I'm most active, you guys can find me at the Instagram handle at Rise Kill Eat, just like the name of this show, all together at Rise Kill Eat. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/RKE, as in Rise Kill Eat, RKE a field. So that's facebook.com/RKE a field. And then on Twitter, you can find me at the handle at RKE a field. All right, so reach out to me on there. I love hearing you guys from all over the country and really all over the world. I mean, we have some international listeners, and I really appreciate you guys checking out the Rise Elite podcast because I mean it's crazy that me sitting here in my bedroom recording these podcast episodes in Kentucky is able to reach people's ears from Australia, Canada, South Africa, Europe. I mean, all over the place. So thank you guys for taking some time and listening to the Rise Elite podcast. It's just crazy. And also thank you guys for listening from all over the country. I mean, we have, I think last time I checked, we have almost all 50 states covered as far as downloads and listeners go. So it's pretty incredible that this podcast has been able to reach so many people from all over the place. So thank you guys for that, because I mean, it's really not possible without you guys. So I do certainly appreciate it. So reach out to me on social media from there, and I'd love to discuss with you and connect with you on there. So one quick thing before we get to our episode, I want to also ask that if you guys find any kind of value from the Rise Elite podcast, and especially from today's episode, which I think you will because it's an incredibly inspiring episode today, that you guys leave a rating and review on the podcast platform that you're listening to. I know most of you guys are probably listening on the Apple podcast platform. They have a really easy setup that you guys can leave ratings and reviews on there. So if you just scroll down, go to the Rise Kill Eat title page. Whenever you click on the shows, just scroll down. It'll give you an option of 5 stars. So just give me a rating on how many stars you think the show deserves, and then just leave a quick review, and that would be greatly appreciated. Those ratings and reviews, they go a long way in being able to organically grow this podcast and get it into people's ears even more than what it already is. And any help that you guys can give as far as the ratings and reviews go, then that would be certainly greatly appreciated, and it would be awesome to see those numbers climb. So I appreciate you guys that have already done that, and I appreciate the ones that are planning on doing that. So thank you guys for doing that. All right, that's it as far as announcements go, because I wanted to go ahead and dive into this conversation that I had with Matt. So again, Matt Branch, he is a former LSU football player. He's now a husband. He's a father with another one on the way. He's an avid hunter, and he's a great man of faith. And this episode really inspired me personally. He's just got a great mentality on prioritizing the things that really matter in life. So I think you guys are going to enjoy this episode. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into my talk today with Matt Branch. Enjoy the show. So I've got Matt Branch here. So Matt has a very interesting story. I've been doing a lot of research on on Matt's story over the past couple of days, just kind of get ready for this. And man, your story is just pretty incredible. And of course, we're going to get into that. And I appreciate you being on the Rice Kill Elite podcast. If you want to just kind of give a synopsis, I guess, of who you are, you can go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. I appreciate it. I was lucky to get this squeezed in my schedule right now. With all the coronavirus stuff going on, I've just been super busy. I've just kind of been sitting at the house, just watching TV and stuff. So, I was lucky to be able to get on the show today. So, I'm just kidding. It's kind of a joke. But anyway, so I'm married with my wife, Leanna. We live here in Monroe, Louisiana, with our 2-year-old son. His name's Barrett. And my wife is also 31 weeks pregnant right now. So we're expecting our second child here in about another almost 2 months from now. So
that's awesome.
We got a lot of stuff. Yeah, man, we got a lot of stuff going on and all the craziness in the world right now. So we're just trying to make it every day. But I guess, like I said, I'm from Monroe, Louisiana, which is basically home to nothing but churches and rednecks. That's about it. We love our hunting and fishing here in North Louisiana. I work for Corteva Agri-Science, which is an agricultural manufacturer. So what we do is we produce products for farmers to use to grow their crops. And I work as a territory manager for them. So my office is actually out of my house. And I travel in a geography within the state of Louisiana and just kind of call on customers and distributors and represent the products that we sell and manufacture. And I guess one of the good things about working in the agriculture industry, especially for your listeners out there, is, the thing about ag is during the winter months, which is hunting season, we're not really doing anything. We're just kind of sitting around making plans for the next growing season. So you get plenty of time to hunt and fish, or at least hunt in the winter. Maybe not fishing so much in the spring and summer. We're pretty busy then. But for any guys out there that may be looking for a career change or looking for a career and you love hunting, agriculture is definitely one to look at. I recommend it for sure. Also, I guess the number one thing that we're known for here in Monroe, Louisiana is Duck Dynasty. The Robertsons. Everybody knows who they are.
Of course, everybody knows who they are.
They kind of put us on the map here in Monroe. It was crazy. Like when the show was at its peak, they had a little restaurant in West Monroe, and I've eaten there once or twice. To us here in Monroe, like the Robertsons really aren't that big a deal. I mean, we've known about them for 20, 30 years now.
Right.
We've known who Phil was. He's gone around to different churches and spoken at events and things. I've watched it several times as a kid. And then I guess when the show took off, they just blew up nationwide. And, people were freaking out. But you could go to their little restaurant over in West Monroe, and I mean, there's no telling what kind of license plates you would see. I mean, there'd be people from Wisconsin, Maine, Oklahoma, all on the East Coast, the West Coast, and I'm just sitting around scratching my head like, why are all these people here? And then it dawns on me, they're just here because of Duck Dynasty. Like, there's nothing to do in Monroe, Louisiana. Like I said, we're just a bunch of churches and rednecks. That's about it. But we had a spike in tourism after the Duck Dynasty premiered, so it's pretty cool. But that's just about what everybody says when I tell them where I'm from. They're like, oh, isn't that where the Robertsons live? I'm like, yep, it's what we're famous for, so.
Admittedly, I have to admit that we have planned and we have looked into coming down into Monroe, Louisiana, just to kind of check out all the Duck Commander and the Buck Commander, all the Duck Dynasty stuff. So yeah. I live in Kentucky, on the eastern side of Kentucky. So that's a good 13, 14 hour trip for us. So admittedly, I have to admit that I'm in that crowd that I guess would be kind of associated with that. So.
Yeah, well, don't feel like you're the only one, but I'm just warning you ahead of time. That's all there is in Monroe. There's really not much else,
See, haven't they? I know they've kind of included like a little zoo and that kind of stuff, just to give some people, some other things to do once they do come down for that. And has it grown, over the past 6 or 7 years, or is it just pretty much the same since then?
They basically what's happened was the zoo started off, it was pretty decent zoo back in the 90s when I was a kid. And then in the 2000s, it kind of like took a turn for the worse, and they had to shut some of the stuff down. But since Duck Dynasty, they kind of opened some of the stuff back up. So, yeah, I'd say we're trying in Monroe, but, things just happen a little bit slower here.
Gotcha. I guess every town has their rate of growth, if so to speak, I guess. And then, of course, having the family there, having the Robertson family there, of course, just like you said, just kind of put Monroe on the map, because I before Duck Dynasty kind of came out, I had heard of, like Louisiana Monroe, the university, but even that, I didn't know where that was or anything. And of course, once Duck Dynasty took off, then that's when Monroe became on the map. So that's pretty cool, though.
The ULM football team finally got on TV when Lily showed up to the game.
I guess that's what it takes. Then you just got to have somebody there.
Yeah, I'm kind of biased to LSU since I went to school there, played there, so I try to give the ULM fans a hard time when I can.
And rightfully so, because that's what I wanted to get into next year was. So you were, of course, a high school football player. Like I said, I was doing a little bit of research and saw some of your accolades that you were able to achieve in high school, and that, of course, translates to some opportunities at the college level. So, what's it like? Of course, being able to play for a team like LSU, who is known, nationwide for football, and being on a team that, especially this last season, being associated, having the same name as the teams this last season, that just really is known for football.
Yeah, man, it's honestly, when I was in high school, early in my younger high school years, freshman, sophomore, I really didn't ever think that I would have the opportunity to play at the college level. I was always pretty tall, like I'm 6'6" now, and but I was pretty goofy, I guess, in junior high and my high school years. It took a little while for my athleticism to catch up to my size, but after my junior year in high school, it all kind of became real to me, and I started to get college scholarship offers, and I had a pile of offers from different colleges all throughout the South at SEC. I could have gone where I wanted. When LSU called me up and gave me the offer, I was like, man, this is where I'm going, because I went to games as a kid. I grew up cheering on the Tigers. I got to watch them when Nick Saban got there and kind of turned the program around in the early 2000s. I was a kid watching that, and I just dreamed that one day I could play for them. And I never thought my dream would come true. And then you never know what's going to happen the next day. We wake up, you never know what's coming your way, and then all of a sudden, here's one of my biggest childhood dreams, and it's sitting in my lap. And of course, I signed the dotted line, and I gave them 4 years of my life. I learned a ton about life while I was down there. I played in like 28 games, another 2 years. I was never a full-time starter, but I did play a pretty good bit throughout my 3 eligible seasons that I had. My career was kind of cut short. I had a lot of injuries, several concussions over the years, and eventually that just kind of took a toll on my body, and I just decided that I had a long way to go for the rest of my life. And football, as much as I enjoyed it and loved it, it was not going to be there for me forever. I had to kind of take care of myself and move away from it. But no, kind of answering back to your question, playing for LSU is just unbelievable, man. Like, they have the spotlight on them every year. They're typically always a contender, for the national championship. And we had some really good teams when I played there. 2017, I won the national championship. That was my senior year in high school. And as a recruit, they give you tickets to every home game. So basically went to every single home game during the 2007 season. Got to go in the locker rooms after the game and stuff. I mean, it was awesome, and I witnessed it all up close and personal. And then, 2008, 2009, 2010, we had some pretty good years. No national championship runs. And then my last year that I played in 2011, we went back to the national championship, undefeated regular season, SEC champions, and then the bowl committee dropped a nuke bomb on us and made us rematch Alabama in the national championship after we had already beat them, which, to this day, all the players on that team are very bitter about that decision by the committee. And, of course, most people know the story that are football fans. They ended up beating us in the national championship that year.
Yeah.
And we finished the season 13-1, and it felt like we didn't win a game. It was crazy, just how heartbreaking it is to go all the way through the season undefeated, SEC champions, get to the biggest game of your life, and then lose. I mean, we could have just not won a game that year, and I think we would have been able to stomach that a little bit better. But anyway, that's in the past, and I try not to dwell on that too much anymore. You can kind of maybe tell I'm a little bitter about it still. But I hate Alabama. I'll just be clear for any Alabama fans out there. I am not a fan of the Roll Tide or Crimson Tide.
Oh man, yeah, and it's hard to beat. Especially a team of that caliber in one season. I mean, it's got to be difficult to beat them twice. And I remember that, and I was in college at the time whenever that was in 2011. And I remember watching that game, and man, that was such a crazy game, such a crazy season for a lot of SEC teams. And the thing about the SEC, I always love SEC football. SEC it's really known for its football because of teams like LSU and because of teams like Alabama and even Florida at certain times. And there's all these different teams in the SEC that are able to kind of compete with each other. And I think you see that, whenever you look at these high caliber bowl games and national championships over the past, 10 to 15 years, there's a lot of SEC teams thrown in there, LSU, Alabama, Florida. There's all kinds of different ones in there that are competing every year, like you mentioned with LSU. But I think it's just kind of the nature of the beast, and it's whenever you have those kind of the teams and they're constantly playing each other throughout the year, and then they meet again in the championship. I can't imagine how difficult and how tricky that's going to be, and I can understand your bitterness from that perspective for that.
Yeah, man, it's a lifestyle down here in the South, man. The SEC is dominant in college football. I think everybody would agree with that, no matter if you're a Big Ten fan or Pac conference or actual teams out there anymore. I don't know. So I do have to give my 2019 Tigers credit, man. They are arguably the best college football team to ever do it. It was super fun to watch them play this year. I did get to go to one of the home games. I went to the Florida game. Got on the field for warm-ups and stuff, and watched them up close and personal. But it kind of put me at ease around our 2011-2012 season. Watching them dominate college football like they did this year. And it also kind of brought me a little bit of jealousy. I feel like we should have had that same thing that they had this year, but we didn't get to get it. But anyway, hats off to those guys. They had a heck of a season.
Yeah, I really enjoyed watching them this year. Of course, Joe Burrows, he is an absolute maniac at the cornerback position, but just really the whole team. Of course, Burrows got a lot of the notoriety because of being the quarterback and being the leader on the offense. But really, when you watch the whole team, watched all 11 guys out there, it was like watching a machine. Like it was crazy how efficient the offense was and how efficient the defense was. And I think a lot of that showed in that national championship, especially in that second half when they just kind of went crazy. And I really enjoyed watching it. And Burrows, he's actually ended up at Cincinnati, which is right up the road for me here. So that's pretty cool that he's going to have that opportunity to go on and probably end up making a difference in the AFC North, which I'm a Steelers fan, so that's going to be a little bit of an issue as far as that goes. But hopefully the Steelers will have a better year this year. But yeah, that's awesome. I want to kind of go ahead and jump into your hunting a little bit. I mean, of course, you're a big duck hunter. I mean, I think, like you were saying, down in Monroe, Louisiana, I mean, that's what you got to do. So, being a duck hunter and, being a hunter in general, where did all that kind of start for you? You know, there's a lot of people have those, those grandpa stories where grandpa took them out and dad kind of took them out. With me, my dad, he got me introduced with whitetail hunting whenever I was a teenager. So what's that kind of look like for you as far as the start of your hunting goes?
Yeah, so my story is pretty traditional.
Yeah.
It does have a slight twist in it, but so I started out hunting at a very young age with my dad, and he got me introduced to it. I watched him go for probably 6-7 years before he let me come with him, and I was just itching to go with him, and immediately it was something I knew that I was going to continue doing, for the rest of my life. And it took me a couple of years. I started off whitetail hunting. Be clear about that.
Yeah.
It took me a couple of years to actually, be successful in harvesting a deer. And it wasn't that I didn't get shots or opportunities. It was that I didn't make the shots or opportunities. I put it that way. We had a little bit of trouble. I couldn't really quite get down the accuracy part of it at a young age, but soon I got over that, and then now, I mean, I can shoot a rifle, shoot a bow pretty well. But so I grew up hunting, and my whole family did, and it was something that I look forward to every year. Getting to spend time at the camp with the family, and everybody coming back and telling their stories of what they saw, and seeing if somebody got one, and it was fun as a kid growing up. But I guess when I got a little bit older, like high school, I kind of started to focus more on other things, sports, girls, stuff
Right.
like that. And
The
I
usual.
kind of like didn't necessarily like fall out of love with hunting. I still had something there for it, but it wasn't like my number one thing at that point in my life. And then fast forward to college, we already discussed my time at LSU.
Yeah.
Well, hunting season also aligns perfectly with football season. And when I was playing football at LSU, I got no time to come home and sit in a deer stand. And it ate me alive. It's crazy how when something's taken away from you, that's when you learn to truly appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what happened to me. And that passion and fire for hunting just kind of struck back up in me when I was in college. And every chance we had even a 2-3 day break or whatever it might have been, I was getting home and trying to get up in a tree stand or getting a duck blind if I could. And, that just kind of started my love affair for hunting all over again. And then fast forward to after graduating college, I took a job in the agricultural industry, and I already explained, how the ag industry and hunting kind of go hand in hand with the timing of the seasons. And, I just kind of kept pursuing it. And it was something that, I really enjoyed, and I started to have a lot of success. My family has some property about 30 minutes from where I live in Monroe, and we've been managing the whitetail herd for many years, and that was starting to finally pay off for us. And then I seemed to be the one that had all the luck in the family. I was killing the big mature deer that everybody was getting on camera, and after I killed the first one that everybody saw on camera, they were like, yeah, whatever, that was just luck. And then I killed the second one the next year, and everybody was like, all right, you got lucky twice, whatever. And then I killed one the third year, and they were like, all right, what are you doing that we're not doing? What's going on here? Then I killed a fourth one, and then they were like, all right, whatever, you're the king of the island. That's what we call our place, the island over there. They're like, you're the king of the island. We can't talk crap to you anymore, whatever. We're going to have to start listening to you now. So, yeah, I've seen some success while out hunting. It's been a lot of fun for me. But that's kind of how I got my start. It started off young, and then my passion exploded in college, and now here I am today.
Yeah, so we discussed, how, your falls and really winter, being a potential national championship contender for especially that last year. I mean, that falls right in, hunting season, and especially kind of like the start of the duck hunting season, which I guess down in
Yep.
Louisiana you really have, like, I guess, multiple months of good duck hunting. Am I right there?
Yeah, no, you're right. We probably have, like mid-November to the end of
Yeah.
January. But school starts back for most colleges like mid-January, so the end of, the last couple weeks of January you're scratched, and then our games, we typically played in those late bowl games, and we were playing till the second week in January, so we really only had about 4 or 5 days there on most years that I could actually come home and enjoy it a little bit. But yeah, and I wasn't the only one. There were other guys on the team too that had the same feelings that I had for hunting and stuff. So at least I didn't have to suffer alone. I had some others there to kind of comfort me when I was really depressed about it.
You guys could kind of throw around some ideas on what you wanted to do once your season was over with. Then.
That's right. That's right. We'd sit around and watch hunting videos and talk about our sorrows.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here, recently, so just kind of jump ahead a little bit. So, I really appreciate sharing that story with, how you kind of got into hunting. And, I think those family stories, the ones where, dad takes you out, grandpa takes you out, maybe an uncle or something, take you out and kind of show you the ways everything works. I love those stories. And like I said, that's kind of how I got into it as well, as a teenager. And I appreciate you sharing that. But moving ahead here. So this is of course a big, huge reason why I wanted to have you on here, was to discuss your accident. So kind of set up how all that kind of went down, and just kind of, I really like to hear this from your perspective, just because, like I said, I've watched all kinds of videos that you've done with like different, news stations and different things, just kind of prepare for this, and just to hear it from you is just going to be, I think it's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, so buckle your seatbelt. It's a crazy story. I mean, it's like, most days I wake up, I'm like, did this really happen to me? It's like one of those things in life that you just never get over.
Yeah.
You're just it's gonna be there with you forever, and it's there with me forever. We'll get into that, but it's a crazy story, and I'm just gonna kind of get kicked off. It'll take me a few minutes to kind of go over everything, but so anyway, on December the 28th in 2018, so it's been roughly year and a half, a little bit over a year and a half ago. My heart, quit beating for 45 minutes that day. Well, me, my cousin, and my brother, and we had 2 of our friends. We were over at Eagle Lake, Mississippi, which is about 30 minutes north of Vicksburg, Mississippi. My family has a farm over there that they've been farming for 20-something years, and that's one of the places that I grew up hunting. And it's right on the Mississippi River, so there's tons of deer over there. I mean, anybody familiar with the amount of deer on the Mississippi River, and big deer at that. There's tons of hunting clubs up and down the river, but this is right there in the middle of all that, and it's a great place for deer hunting and duck hunting. But we were over there, it was a normal hunt for us. We were just kind of made it a routine every year to kind of go over there and squeeze in the duck hunt about this time of year after Christmas, between New Year, something like that. And this was just one of those days. I've done it hundreds of times in my life, it feels like. But anyway, we were packing up our gear, kind of picking up decoys, that kind of stuff, finishing up the duck hunt. And I walked over to the Polaris Ranger, and I laid my shotgun down into the bed of it. Well, we were getting ready to leave a few minutes later, and I was standing around kind of on the passenger side of the Ranger. Well, we had a hunting dog with us. The hunting dog leaped up into the back of the Ranger, and then a split second later, a 12-gauge 3-inch Magnum fired from my gun went through the bed of the Ranger and struck me point blank in the top of my left eye. At first, we all didn't know, or just couldn't believe what just happened to us, or to me. Between the guys that were standing around there that day, we had at least 80 years of hunting experience. And, not one of us had ever considered something like this could be possible.
Yeah.
We were all familiar with guns, comfortable with guns. Like I said earlier, I grew up hunting, and I knew gun safety. My dad taught me. That was the first thing he taught me growing up. And I practiced it every time I was in the field. But for one reason or another, this just wasn't my day. I didn't intentionally leave a shell in my gun. I just forgot to double check it. And, there was only one shell in the gun. Strangely enough, it wasn't loaded to the brim. It was just one shell in the chamber. So, anyway, seconds after the gun went off, I glanced down and noticed about a coffee can size hole in the bed of the Ranger. It was directly beside me. And, I didn't experience any pain right away, so I didn't know if I had been shot or if I'd been hit or not. Quickly we realized that, the gun went off. And so I went to take a step back, to kind of get a better look at my leg and see if I'd been hit. And when I did that, my leg didn't move. Suddenly the adrenaline rush just hit me like a freight train, man. Like the most, terrified I've ever been in my life. Something that in the back of my mind, I had always considered something crazy, like if you ever got shot, everybody thinks, oh, I don't want to get shot. That would be terrible. Well, it just happened to me like in a blink of an eye, didn't see it coming. And, I could tell really quickly that the injury was severe just by the way my body reacted to it. What I try to tell people to explain it is it's like somebody stuck a vacuum to me and just like sucked 90% of the energy out of my body in like an instant, like just immediately, boom, gone.
Yeah.
So two of the guys that were there, they ran over to pick me up. They knew I was shot by that point. Ran over to pick me up, and I could kind of feel almost paralyzed, like I couldn't move really. I could move a little bit, but not much. But by that point, I had kind of calmed down, like the initial shock hit me. My blood pressure dropped, and then it was like a strange calmness came over me, like, all right, I'm shot now. Like, that's not changing. Now what am I got to do to survive? Survival mode just kind of kicked in on me.
That's crazy.
And, it was intense, man. But pretty quickly after they picked me up, they loaded me up in the Polaris Ranger. They sat me up in the front seat on the passenger side, and my vision just like completely went black. Like I was blinded almost, like instantly just gone. And I could still hear everything going on around me, and I could still communicate to them, but I could not see anything. It was very strange. And then so my cousin called 911, cranked up the Ranger, and for some reason, I don't know why, they can't tell me why either, they decided that they were going to drive me to the nearest highway versus back to our camp. They could have thought, at the camp, they could have thought we had some medical supplies or, something they could help me out with before the ambulance got there. But instead, they just said, look, we'll just go to the highway and we'll just meet the ambulance there. It's from where we were, it was about the same distance to the camp and the highway. So, I mean, it's not like it was just an obvious choice. It's not like we were right beside the highway or anything.
Yeah.
So, for some reason, they chose to take me to the highway, and, that was the first of, honestly, many reasons why I'm able to tell my story on your show today. But, so as we kind of got close to the highway, my vision started to come back to me. And, just the memory that I have to this day, what I saw, it was just kind of, like, it was scary, man. It was kind of spooky. It was like a really dull gray morning, and I could just like feel like the presence of like this evil just like there, coming to get me, like it was all around,
Mm-hmm.
And then, my mind started wondering to my family, and reality sunk in. I might not ever see them again. I may never see my wife again. I may never see my, at the time, 1-year-old son again, and having to sit there and think those thoughts all while I'm just, struggling, fighting everything in me just to stay awake and breathe. It's unbelievable just the amount of emotional pain and, fear that it still brings up in me today when I think back on it. It's just one of those things that I'll never forget. Being so close to losing something that I care about so much, it just kind of makes me want to hold on to it that much tighter. It's a weird feeling that, only really and truly only someone who's going through a near-death experience like that cannot truly understand. But anyway, I was sitting there and then, I had thoughts of, every mistake, wrongdoing, big ones, not every single one, but, big ones I'd done in my life were coming back to me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, man, this is it. I'm going to have to live with this forever. Mm-hmm. And, you think about, your relationship with God, and, did I believe, am I a believer in Jesus Christ that he, saved me? And, you worry and you think about all these things. And, part of me thinks, maybe that was a form of hell almost, yeah. If I die and these are the thoughts that I'm left to think about for the rest of eternity, that would be hell to me in a way, so I'm right in there, and, my friends, we pulled up to the side of the highway, and, they were telling me that I was too tough to let a couple BBs, kill me, and, they didn't think the wound looked that bad, but, to their defense, they couldn't really see how bad it was just because I had on a pair of chest waders. And, most all the blood that I was losing was just pooling up in my chest waders. Yeah. So we were kind of just sitting there, they were trying to, keep me calm and, put some pressure on my leg and stuff. And then the ambulance finally gets there. It was probably, 15, 20 minutes, something like that, between the time I got shot to when the ambulance showed up, maybe a little bit longer. I'm really not aware of the timelines because I was in and out, honestly. But anyway, the ambulance got there. They started to cut my waders off, and when they cut them down the seam, folded them over, they pulled my boot off, and blood just poured out of my boot like water out of a pitcher. And then my clothes, everything basically from the chest down was just stained solid red, soaked. Basically, I had bled out by that time. I was very close to dying at that point. And so anyway, they stabilized me on the stretcher, loaded me up in the ambulance. And I just remember a faint, a bright white kind of looking light, and then boom, darkness, just black. And that was the first time that I coded that day. I coded for a total of probably 45 minutes that day. It was split up. So on the way to the hospital, I coded. I don't know the exact amount of time, but I coded on the way to the hospital. They got my pulse back. They wheeled me into the emergency room. I coded again. And then they worked on me in the emergency room for, at least another 20, 25 minutes before they were able to get my pulse back for the second time. They said basically when, they started to dig in my leg and try to stop the bleeding, they said my femoral artery looked like hamburger meat. It was destroyed.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood going through there. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who's on this that has anything to do with movement or watches movies, I guess, really, everyone knows how important the femoral artery is. Yeah. It is, you will bleed out in minutes if it gets disrupted in any way. And mine was destroyed. It was obliterated. And so anyway, they worked on me, got my pulse back, stabilized me well enough so I could be airlifted to the Jackson, Mississippi Trauma Center. They have a huge hospital in Jackson, Mississippi. And they thought that they could take better care of me over there. So loaded me up on a helicopter. It was a super expensive helicopter ride, and I'm kind of mad about it because I don't have any memory of it. You know, everybody thinks it'd be cool to find a helicopter. Well, I did, and I don't even remember it, and it cost me $20,000.
Yeah, you paid a lot of money for that ride.
Yeah, dude. Like, I don't even get a video of it or nothing. Like, I was kind of mad when I woke up. You know. Anyway, I can joke about this. You know, I'm to the point in my life now where I can kind of joke about it a little bit. But anyway, so that's kind of like the accident, like how it happened, when it happened, and kind of what happened right after that. Well, in the Jackson hospital, I was in a coma, knocked out, basically a medical-induced coma for 12 days. I have, 12 days. Like, I have no memory at all of these 12 days. During that time, I had 10 major surgeries where they amputated my leg. Because, see, my wound was so bad, like at Vicksburg, when they went in to try to stop the bleeding, they'd patch a spot, and then boom, another spot would spring up. And they'd patch it, boom, another spot would spring up. They said it was like somebody just like poked holes all in a water hose, and like they could not stop it. You know, it just kept pulling up. So what they wound up doing was just basically cutting off all blood flow to my left leg just so they could pump enough blood in me to keep my heart beating. Well, by the time I got to Jackson, by the time, they went over all the procedures and did all that, my left leg was basically dead. It was gone, so they had to end up cutting it off, amputating it. And they had to do it in like 3 or 4 different surgeries, and it took, a little bit of time because they kept finding more dead tissue, more stuff, so they kept cutting me higher and higher and higher until there was nothing else left to cut on my leg. So basically now, I have 0 remnants of a left leg. I have nothing. And also to keep me alive, they gave me over 300 blood transfusions.
God.
And anybody in the medical world knows that is a lot of blood. Basically just kind of rough math, that's like every drop of blood in like 35 to 40 full grown adults. That's how much blood they had to pump through my body to keep me alive during those 12 days, and in the hospital in Vicksburg when I was there for a short time. But it is unreal. It was just unreal, the medical impracticalities, I guess. A lot of the doctors were even calling it a miracle. They said, what happened to you and that you survived is essentially medically impossible. We've never seen anybody with an injury like yours that survived. And not only did I survive, but when I woke up, I was mentally sharp. Like I had lost 0 memories throughout my entire life through all this. The only thing that's blank is the 12 days that I was in a coma.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about me. Like I remembered everybody's names. I remembered my phone numbers. I mean, everything. And they were just in awe that I did not have any brain damage due to lack of blood and oxygen. Because, when I bled out, they had no idea how long my brain had gone without blood and oxygen. And, any amount of time that your brain's cut off like that is detrimental, typically. You just start losing it by the second. And, they had no idea how long I'd been out. And, they just couldn't believe that I woke up and I was 100% with it, Now, obviously, I was on the drugs when I woke up. I was saying some off-the-wall stuff. And, it was pretty hilarious. My family was actually kind of laughing at me a lot during that time because I'm kind of a character, I guess, when I get some chemicals in me. And they were fully entertained by me for the next couple of weeks when I was in the hospital. But and when I woke up, the crazy thing is, due to phantom pain. Also, let me go back a little bit. When I was in a coma for 12 days, I had the strangest, craziest, most vivid dreams I've ever had in my life. I mean, I had dreams, almost every night, but I might remember one little thing that might have happened in my dream. But these dreams that I had when I was in a coma, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. and I still remember them in detail to this day. And, like, I was convinced after I woke up that, like, those dreams had actually happened because they were so vivid. It took my family, like, a week to convince me that I had been laying there in that hospital bed for the last 2 weeks, and those were all just dreams I was having. So when I woke up, I thought I still had my leg. And because of the dreams, and also because of phantom pain. And phantom pain is basically anybody who loses a limb due to amputation. What they call phantom pain is where your brain still thinks that limb is there. So you still have feeling. Like, to this day, I can still feel my left leg, even though it's gone.
Man.
Your brain, like, plays a trick on you. Like, okay, there was a leg there. It didn't just disappear. It's still there. We're just trying to find it. So it's steadily sending signals down there, and your nerve endings are sending signals back up. Like, we're not finding anything. Like, what's going on? So it's almost like a painful type sensation.
Yeah.
And so, like, it feels like you literally have a leg. So when I woke up, like, I was having these phantom pains, and I was like, man, somebody please, like, rub my leg, rub my left leg. Like, the thing's itching, or, like, it's burning. Like, somebody scratch it. I just kept begging everybody, and they just kept giving me these blank stares, like, don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, nothing there, right?
Dude, I was like, you'll scratch my right leg, but why won't you touch my left leg? Like, what's going on, Until finally, my dad came in the room, and he was like, son, they had to amputate your leg so, they could save your life. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah. And he had tears in his eyes, and he was telling me. And, I was just sitting there, like, just totally caught off guard, like, oh my gosh, like, my leg is gone? Like, what am I going to do now? Like, I don't know anything about being an amputee. Like, I don't even know an amputee. Like, what is my life going to be like? And I sit there and I thought about it for a minute, and I was like, So I looked up at my dad and I said, okay, well, could you at least go get me some mac and cheese or something, man? Like, I'm dying over here. Like, oh, man.
12 days without mac and cheese. So.
Yeah, immediately he smiled. He was like, okay, he's going to be all right, and it wasn't just like me being tough or anything. Pain meds definitely had something to do with my response there. But anyway, in a nutshell, that's kind of how I've treated this. Like, it is what it is, and I've got a life to live. I've got to keep on living it. I've got a little boy who looks up to me. I've got a baby girl on the way. I've got a wife who depends on me, to support our family. Have a job. So, that's just kind of how I treated this whole process the whole time. Like, just keep waking up and keep moving forward. And, you never know what God's going to bring you tomorrow. So, you better wake up and see what it's going to be. That's kind of been my motto going through all this. And, it's not easy. I'll be the first to tell you, there's many days where I wake up and I'm like, man, this freaking sucks. Like, oh my gosh, like, why did this happen to me? And I go down this rabbit hole of why me and why this and why that. And at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you, that doesn't do anything for you. It does not change your reality. It just changes your mindset for the worse. And if you're going to be strong and go through something like this, the one thing you've got to have is a strong mindset. And, I've tried all kinds of different methods, all kinds of different things, but I'll be the first to tell you the number one thing that's helped me through this is just trusting that God has a plan for this, in my life, that He's going to take care of me. I have many questions for Him, believe me, but, I just kind of trust that He knows what's best for me and my future, even though I may not. He's like my daddy. I'm like a child. It's just like I tell my son all the time. He asks me, well, can I have this candy? Can I have this toy? And I'm like, no, you can't. He doesn't understand why, but I do. I'm like, man, that candy's going to make you fat. You can't keep eating all that. Or, that toy is going to waste your time. Like, you don't want to play with that. He doesn't get it, but I do. And that's kind of how I look at my relationship with God. It's hard to do. It's a lot easier said than done. I kind of make it sound easy by talking about it, but that's the best way I know how to go about this, basically.
Yeah, man, that's incredible that you're able to have that kind of mentality and that kind of positivity like during the struggle and during the whole event, because I mean there's so many people that you hear about that they'll face similar things, they'll face things that really bring them down physically, and then of course that's going to affect them mentally and emotionally, and they spiral down to the point to where they really can't recover. And the fact that you're able to stay positive during the struggle is just it's just incredible, really. That's what's really intrigued me about your story, is just the mentality that you've had throughout this whole process. I mean, you know this is a year and a half into this, and I mean you've already you've come to grips, you've come to know that, and you come to put your trust into God, that this is your life now. And just the fact that you've surrendered your story over to Him and say, God, whatever you do with this, go for it. It's just
Yep.
absolutely incredible, and that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best way I know how to do it. Like I said, I've tried other methods, I've tried other things, and this is by far the best. And I want to make sure everybody understands, like, this is my story, this is what happened to me. But honestly, like, the way I look at this can be said for everybody on the earth. No matter what, everybody goes through trials and tribulations. Everybody has difficult days, difficult times, difficult periods in their life. And this advice isn't just for me. It's for, honestly, anybody out there
Hmm.
who's willing to take it, and it's free for the taking. God doesn't ask for anything in return from us. He just wants us to trust Him and believe that He is the Almighty and sent His Son Jesus here to die on the cross to forgive us of our sins. Like, that's all we have to do. Like, it's pretty easy. Like, most things, most people out there asking for something, like, they want an arm and a leg, and I tell them, like, look, I only got one leg. You can't have that. So I can't really buy into all these other people's stuff. So but God, He doesn't ask for that. He just asks for a heart, and asks us to trust Him, and that's it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think using that, as your platform is just having I know it's had an impact on me, and how I view my life over the past few days, just kind of researching your story. And I know it's going to have an impact on other people that listen to this, and it's going to have an impact on people that you've already talked to, and shared your story with. But I really wanted to see what your friends that were there, that saw everything happen, and kind of seeing the way you're living now. What are some of their perspectives on it? Well, I mean, what kind of impact has it had on the ones that were with you when it went down, and are of course still, I'm assuming, are still with you today?
Yeah. So yeah, the three other guys I had with me, my brother was there too, but he wasn't actually um, around the Ranger when it happened. He was actually several hundred yards down the slough that we were hunting. He was still hunting, so he wasn't actually there around us. He was with us that day. But no, I mean, it's changed their life too. This is something that's going to be with them for forever. They're never going to forget what happened to me that day. They were firsthand witnesses, and I'd say it's definitely probably made them realize that life is short. It can be taken from you in a second, and you never see it coming. And I guarantee you, it has caused them to be more cautious while they're out in the field hunting.
Hmm.
It definitely has done that, and they've told me that for sure. It's definitely kind of changed the way they look at things, and like, I've been out hunting and stuff since this happened too. Like, I didn't give up on hunting. I want to be clear. I don't blame this on hunting. I don't blame this on guns. I don't even blame it on the dog that made my gun go off. This was my fault. I left a shell in it. I didn't mean to leave it in there. I didn't do it on purpose, but I did. I take the full blame for what happened to me. But it still doesn't change the fact that I still enjoy the outdoors and I still enjoy hunting. It's just a different process for me now. I got to look at doing things a little bit different. I can talk about that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's awesome. So, but yeah, you kind of mentioned how you kind of kind of reprioritize, gun safety and that kind of thing and hunting safety. And I mean, moving forward, with this past hunting season and that kind of thing, what kind of challenges and that kind of stuff did you kind of have to overcome in order to get back out there, especially on that first hunt, and having the new thought, I guess, of gun safety and hunting safety, in the back of your mind?
Yeah, so yeah, hunting is very different for me now. And it's not just hunting; it's just life in general. Every day is like it was like I was born again when this happened, and I just had to like relearn how to do everything in my life, like literally everything. Wake up, go to sleep, work, walk, cook, hunt, stand, sit, go to the bathroom, you name it. Like everything in my life has like had to reach that button, and I've got to relearn how to do it all. So basically, I'll just kind of share the hunting part with y'all. But so hunting is a challenge. It's not easy. I do have a prosthetic leg that I use for most of my everyday stuff, like if I'm working or if I go run errands and things like that. I have my prosthetic leg on. It's just with my leg, it has a lot of limitations because of my amputation being so high up. My prosthetic has to replace 3 working joints: my hip, my knee, and my ankle.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, losing 3 weight-bearing joints is extremely difficult to overcome. And most people that do have my type, same amputation, they never use a prosthetic because it's just too difficult. The prosthetic has so many limitations. Going uphill, going downhill is very difficult. Using stairs, just walking is hard. It took me a while just to get used to walking. And then like walking in the mud or walking in water, like it's impossible. You can't do it really, So I have had to change, my hunting strategy up a little bit. And typically when I hunt, I'm using forearm crutches. I don't wear my prosthetic when I go hunting just because of the number of limitations that it has. But, on my forearm crutches, I can do just about anything I want to. The limitation of using my crutches is I don't have my hands free to kind of do stuff. So that's why I like to wear my leg if I'm working and stuff. You can just kind of live more of a normal life on a prosthetic, a normal day-to-day. But if you're going to do anything active, forearm crutches are the way to go.
Yeah.
Because, I can hike miles and miles. I can go up mountains. I can climb trees. I've gotten myself in good enough shape where, I can still do, a lot of things outdoors that I was doing before. I've just kind of had to come up with new ways to do it, and a lot of trial and error has gone into it. But, the act of actually going to the stand, getting up in the stand, making the shot, like all that's pretty easy. Like that's not really that difficult. Now the challenge is the act of recovery and dressing a deer.
Yeah,
that's pretty tough.
That is a pretty physical event trying to do that.
Yeah, like I mean, anybody's ever dragged a deer through the woods, like that is a heck of a workout.
Yeah.
And doing it on forearm crutches, basically you better just call somebody to come do it for you. And I'm lucky that I have plenty of family and friends that are more than willing to help me out in that department. I did actually kill a deer in Texas this year, and I loaded him up by myself, which everybody at the camp thought I was nuts. I was like, man, look, nobody would answer my phone call. I was like, I had to do something. I was like, I ain't got time to wait on y'all. So I figured out a way to do it myself. But thankfully, it was a Texas whitetail, hill country Texas whitetail to be exact. And those deer are only like 150 pounds,
yeah,
the mature ducks. So they're not quite as big. Now, these big swamp donkeys we have here in Louisiana, dragging a 250-pound mature buck through the woods and loading them up on a four-wheeler with one leg, nah, that ain't happening.
Might just drag it behind it.
Yeah, if somebody can do that, I'd love to see them. I'd love to see who it is because I'm a big guy, and I've gotten myself in really good shape since all this happened, just because being in shape for me now is super important. It's important for everybody, but for me, it's super important because it just makes my life that much easier. But so yeah, that's kind of how I've struggled through my hunting season this past year, and it's like anything else. It's going to take some time to figure out the best method or figure out the best way to go about stuff, and it's like I said, I got to relearn how to do everything all over again. It's kind of like I'd never hunted before when I went back out for the first time after this happened to me. So it's been a little difficult, but it's honestly kind of been fun. I felt like I had hunting pretty much figured out beforehand, when I was standing upright on two legs, and now it's like, man, I don't have any of this figured out. Like, I've got to start over. And, it's kind of giving me something to think about, something to help take my mind off my struggles. Like, all right, well, I can climb up in the tree if I do it this way, or I can get my bow to the ground blind if I do it this way, or it's like it's been kind of fun. I'll be honest with that.
Yeah, I still think it's crazy that you're able to have such, positivity, through this whole time and just through this whole struggle and everything. That's awesome that you're able to get back out and you're able to have some successes as far as being able to put some food on the ground and some food in the freezer. That's awesome that you're able to get that, and that's really cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and food in the freezer. I think people are going to have a whole new appreciation for having food in the freezer after this coronavirus outbreak.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've heard. Like, I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast sometimes. And he's been saying on there, like, he's like, man, I'm getting all kind of people calling me, like, how do I start hunting? Like, I need food. Like, what am I going to do? And I think after going through this, people are going to have a whole new appreciation for those guys that will get out there and work and put food in their freezer on their own hands. So
yeah, man, I think you're right. I think that's a whole event. Especially there for a long time in grocery stores, like there was almost no meat available. So I mean, the people who had the meat were the ones that were out hunting, and I think it made a lot of people realize like there might be something to this, to actually go out and harvest their own meat, and maybe we should start investing some time and money into learning how to do it. And Joe Rogan, you mentioned him, and he's been one of the biggest advocates. He's, I mean, just nationally and really internationally for people, harvesting their own meat, being a hunter and learning how to shoot a bow and that kind of thing. It's been really cool watching his journey over the past, I guess, been 6 or 7 years or so. Learning from guys like Cam Haynes and Stephen Ranella and all those kind of guys. John Dudley. It's been pretty cool.
They've done a lot for hunting. They've kind of opened some people's eyes. They got some different fan bases out there that aren't typically the ones who are out there doing it. They think it's just a bunch of dumb rednecks who are out there hunting and doing stuff. But no, there's definitely more to it than just the act of killing an animal. It's providing for your family, it's providing for yourself, and it's knowing where your food comes from. And most people are not in tune with that. I work in the ag industry, and every day you can find somebody griping about, oh, this is not organic, this is this is that, yada yada yada. You can go on for days, but the fact is, people literally just think that the food just shows up at the grocery store. Like, nobody worked for it, nobody did anything. It just shows up there.
Yeah.
And that's 100% false. Say what you want about big ag, but it is important. And I think going through this coronavirus has kind of shined some light on that, and maybe opened some people's eyes around that whole topic of discussion.
I think it has, and there's nothing that will straighten out your mentality on and give you an appreciation for things around you, especially people who are in the food industry, than to take away the food. Like, once the food is gone, I mean, you really start to prioritize what's important for you, and like, what do we need to do to get this? Because I mean, I think we're just so, as a society, we're just so like you were mentioning a minute ago, like we're just so used to having all these things where we can just walk into the grocery store, spend $15 and take it home and cook it and eat it. Or heck, we may not even have to cook it. It may already be cooked for us. We're just so conditioned to that mentality that we just don't know where our food comes from, as a society. And that's really really a big motivator for the Rice Kill Elite podcast, and really just hunters in general, is just to kind of share with people like this backstrap that I'm eating right here on my plate, like it was walking around in the woods 2 days ago. This was
the
not
same as that steak that you bought from the store.
exactly.
That was walking around in a pasture or on a farm somewhere, a few weeks ago or whatever the timeline would be. But it's no different. I like how Joe Rogan puts it. He says, if you're buying meat from a grocery store, you're basically just hiring a hitman to do all your bidding for you. And that is 100%. That is a great way to look at it, because that's what it is. The hunters, we're not hiring anybody to go out and kill our animals for us. We're doing it ourselves. And I love when he says that, because I'm like, man, that is 100% correct. That is dead on.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. So what kind of what kind of things have you done with your son and your soon to be little girl in order to show them, show your son, like, here's what we're eating, and that kind of thing. And I know with my kids, well, anytime that we have some duck, or we have some turkey, or we have some deer, something that I've shot and we're eating it for dinner, I try to make sure that they know, like, this is, that turkey I brought home and you helped me cut up, like, this is it right here. This is what we're having for dinner tonight. And I think, kids, they naturally are interested in that kind of thing. They want to know where their food comes from. And I've seen that with my own kids, and I've seen that with other people's kids and stuff. But they want to know, like, what am I eating? Where did it come from? How did it get here? And that kind of thing. And so, what kind of things have you done, being a dad and being somebody who's being an example for your kid, to show them, where your food comes from?
Yeah. So, I'm still a young dad. I'm still kind of into, chicken nugget,
oh yeah,
mac and cheese phase with my kids. But no, you're 100% right, man. I do have plans of, showing them the amount of work that it takes to, put food on the table, and where your food comes from. And just because we're out here doing it ourselves, it's no different than the people in the grocery store buying it, getting somebody else to do it for them. This is the same process. It's the exact same, no matter if we do it or if we get it from the grocery store. The same things take place in order for it to get on our plate, in our kitchen, at our table. So I definitely have plans of sharing that process with them. And I think you're 100% right. We need to start our kids off early and teach them, the amount of work and where things actually come from. And, like my son, I put it this way, it's funny because every time the UPS driver or the mailman comes, like, he gets so excited. He's like, oh, the postman's here. Like, he thinks he's Santa Claus or something, because, what's he doing? He's dropping off Amazon boxes that a lot of them have toys for him in it. So, like, he thinks the postman brings it all to him. And we're like, no, like, we actually bought that for you, like, it's not the postman. Like, give us some credit.
He's getting all the credit for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely have plans to, teach my children those attributes of life, and, just kind of where things come from, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's nothing that motivates you more than, having kids and having a wife that relies on you. And I know that's something that you've discussed up to this point, and, really just with your wife in general, and with, wife going forward, that's something that I'm sure is going to continue to be a motivator. And I know it continues, and hopefully it's a motivator for all dads, but it's something that is going to be unique, of course, in your scenario. And that's awesome. Man, I got a couple more questions here before we kind of close out here. But my first one, this first one is one that all my listeners, they're familiar with. This is something I ask all my guests at the end of kind of our conversation. And it's something that I love hearing, my guests, I love hearing their answer to this question, because they're kind of all over the place, but they're always, great. So my question for you is, what does hunting mean to you?
Yeah. So, hunting, we've kind of discussed a lot of what hunting means to me, but, it's about connection. It's about relationships, on top of some of the things we've already talked about. when I'm out hunting, I'm wanting to share that experience with somebody else. It's to me that's one of the biggest things. Hunters, we are not the majority by any means. We are a very small minority, and if we want to continue doing what we love, we have to introduce more people into the outdoors. Maybe this coronavirus will help. Kind of wake people up a little bit, like we've been talking about, and be more curious and ask questions. But we've got to spread the word out there to those people that are against us, and show them look, we're trying to do this the right way. There are people out there that make mistakes. We all make mistakes in life, but in the end, there's good behind this. Like we're doing something that our ancestors did, thousands of years ago, and we're just continuing that tradition in our way of doing it. Now in the 21st century. But I guess I do want to kind of talk about this too. Hunting before December 28th, when all this happened to me, hunting was something that I was extremely passionate about, and I always dreamed of traveling the world, or at least the country, and harvesting all these animals on my bucket list, and that was a lot of what my free time and my thoughts revolved around. But going through this has changed that. One thing that I like to share with people is when you're taking your last dying breaths on earth, all these material things in life are not running through your head at all. You're not thinking, I wish I had a bigger house, or I wish I had I wish I could get that new truck I just saw in the lot, or my buddy over here, he just seems like he has a way better job than I do. I wish I had his job or somebody else's job, and those things aren't going through your head in your last dying breaths here on earth. And if they don't matter at the very end of your life, why do we put so much weight onto all this while we're living? While we're actually here living life, and that's something that I got caught up in before all this happened to me, and I still get caught up in it from time to time. But I'd find myself wishing, man, I'd be hating on somebody because they had a better place to hunt, and I'd be like, oh, your place doesn't count, and it's like almost I was competing with them, but then deep down I was just jealous.
Yeah.
And I feel like hunters, a lot of times we kind of get in that track where we're like, oh, you shot that deer with a crossbow, that doesn't count, or oh, you shot him with a rifle at 250 yards, I shot mine with a bow at 15 steps, I'm a way better hunter than you. Like, we get stuck in that sometimes, and I understand that, I do, but I just want people to realize, like, when you are literally breathing your last breath, like, none of that goes through your head. You're not thinking, you wish you had bigger horns on the wall, or you wish you would have shot that deer with a bow instead of your rifle, or whatever. You're thinking about your family and your relationship with God. And what does God ask us to do? He asks us first and foremost to treat others as we would like to be treated. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, hunters, we kind of get stuck up in what I just explained, the I'm better than you attitude. And, that's not what God asks us to do. If we would all just learn to work together, collaborate with each other, and figure out how we can get more people involved in the sport that we love so much, we would all be a lot better off.
Man, that was such wisdom. Holy cow, that was awesome, man. I appreciate that. But yeah, man, you're 100% right though. I mean, that's awesome. I definitely appreciate that, and I can definitely relate to that. And man, that was great. So Matt, I don't want to go into anything else here, because I think that's a great way to stop, because I'm not sure if I can top that or anything, if I can even add anything to that, because you killed everything in that one. So, but I do want to give you an opportunity just to kind of tell listeners where people can connect with you, with everything that you're doing. Just kind of, where are you on social media? What are ways that people can kind of connect with you and hear more of your story and kind of get into more of Matt Branch?
Yeah, so I'm on all the social media networks. I'm probably most active on like Instagram and Facebook. I do have a Twitter account, but I don't get on there very much. But Instagram, I've got my handle is at m_c_branch, MC Branch, and Facebook is just Matt Branch. But yeah, no, if anybody's interested in hearing more, or, has any questions for me, I check my social media. I'm not the best at, getting on there and being on it nonstop. But I do check it from time to time. So if anybody has questions or wants to reach out, feel free. Instagram, Facebook's the best way to do it. So that's it, man.
That's awesome. I'll make sure I put those in the show notes. That way everybody can kind of just click on that link and it'll take them right to it, man. But man, I appreciate you being open. I appreciate you being, vulnerable with your story today and kind of sharing the details, the nitty gritties of your story. And I just thank you for the encouragement and, the positivity that you keep putting out there. And I'm glad that we were able to connect because, I mean, just your mentality on how you view life is just something that's encouraging for me. And I know it's going to be encouraging for other people. So I appreciate you being on the Rise Kill Elite podcast with me.
Yeah, Tyler, anytime, man. Anytime. I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right, man.